Okay, I've got a nice empty new project just started up here, a new 2D project. So first thing we want to do is import the assets that you're going to use in the course. So attached to this video, or as a download in the previous lecture, there will be this asset file that we're going to use for the course. It just contains some graphics and some audio stuff that we're going to use. If you want to use your own things, of course, you're more than welcome to use whatever you can find for assets in your project. But what we're going to do is just grab this package and just click and drag it into Unity here, into our project section, and then it'll give us full breakdown of everything that we have to bring in here. And I'm just going to hit import to bring all of those into the project. And this might take a minute or two, so we'll just wait for this to all be done. And there we go. Once you get that imported in your assets folder, we have the assets we want to use in here. Before we do anything with them, one further step that I want to do is make sure that there's nothing in this project that we don't want to use. So if we go to Window and then to Package Manager and give this a second to load up, it'll try and find packages that are included and packages that you might want to include. So with in project selected here, if you click on this, if it doesn't default to in project for you, make sure you have in project selected, and you'll see all the things that are included with your project. And right now we've got the visual scripting is included, and we really don't want this. This is Unity are trying to push their visual scripting stuff, because this is a very, very handy way, if you don't know your way around coding, is to use visual scripting. It's a good way to learn how to do a lot of stuff. But we don't want it in our project because it kind of clogs things up and makes things run. When your game is running, it'll run extra stuff that you don't really need. So I'm going to remove that. And yes, I am sure I want to remove it. But for now, everything else is perfectly fine. Everything else we want to have in here in general. Well, maybe not the JetBrains writer unless you have that program installed. That's just another code writing software assistant, basically. But once this is done, then with that removed, everything else is perfectly fine. And I'm going to just close out of that. And then first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set up something we're going to use in our project. We're going to lay out some tiles for us to be able to see the area that our board is going to take up. So, but to do that, we need an asset that we're going to use to represent that. So I'm going to go into my assets folder. This is also just a quick little, hey, what's in the asset folder? We've got some materials down here that we'll use for particle effects later. We've got some audio, we've got music and sound effects. We'll do that much later in the course. And then most importantly, we have various art elements that we're going to use. So in here, we have some nice gems that we're going to use. We have the 5 gems we're going to use, and then a couple of extra ones if you want to use those also. We've got some UI elements that we want to use. And we have a bomb and a stone and a piece of gem, and that's used for the particles. If we go to materials here, that's the shard particle down here, that's used for this, and again we'll return to that later. But for now, let's go back here to our art folder and then into UI, and here we have a block BG file. So I'm going to grab this and drag it into our scene here, and that'll drop in one nice little block for us to use in our game. And we're going to make this repeat in a couple of different places. So we're going to make it so that this can be reused. I also don't want this to just be this kind of white color. So I'm going to go over here to my color. And I'm going to select a new color. I'm going to go for a blue, kind of a little bit of a pale blue color, like so. I think that's roughly okay. And I'm going to make the background of my actual screen here with our main camera a very light blue. Actually, for the moment, we'll leave it at the color it was, because we will change that a little bit later, but it's a little bit hard to see this blue for now. We're going to add a white background and stuff as we go a little further, but for now we'll just leave it as these colors. I think they kind of make a bit more sense. There we go. So we'll just stick with the default color for now. But we've got a nice little blue here. Maybe even we'll go a little paler with this, like so. And then we need to make this a prefab that we'll be able to use over and over again. So if you haven't used prefabs before in Unity, basically a prefab is a copy of this item that we'll be able to use. So if I go to my assets in my project area here and into assets, if I go right click and create a folder that we're going to call prefabs, but it doesn't matter what you call it. The name for this doesn't have any significance. This is just for easy remembering for us. I'm going to grab this block BG and put it down here. And I'm going to rename this to be tile background. And now, one really cool thing about how prefabs work, again, if you're not familiar with them, is I can delete this one from my scene that we have, And now anytime I want to use a tile background, I can just drag it in here like this, and I can pop it into place. And now if I go to the original prefab and I make any changes to it, so if I, for example, change the color of this to be yellow, that instantly changes all these prefabs over here, which is great and handy. Let me just undo that because I want to leave it blue. But we can make changes to our prefab and that'll carry over. But it's important to note that on the individual prefabs here, if you make a change to this, you're just making a change to the individual one that you've brought into your scene. So if I go here and make this one yellow, now this one is yellow, but the other two are unaffected, and the actual prefab is unaffected too. It doesn't change the prefab unless we go to this one, and if we go up to overrides here and just apply all, so overrides are basically changes you've made to the prefab. If I apply that, it'll now make the other prefabs the same color because it's made the original prefab take on that change that we made to it here. So just a quick little overview of how the prefabs work. And I'm going to undo that though because I do still want to keep it blue, and I'm going to remove all three of these from our scene. Okay, so we've got our scene set up, we've got our project the way we want it to be, and we've got our tile background prefab. Now we need to start making the board that our gems are going to appear on.